The rhythmic clank of Alex Thorne's wrench against metal echoed through the empty corridor of Vesta 7. The station's perpetual hum of life support systems formed a backdrop to his monotonous work, fixing yet another faulty air filter in this forgotten corner of the asteroid mining outpost. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he tightened the last bolt, his reflection distorted in the polished surface of the maintenance panel. A man in his mid-30s with unkempt brown hair and tired eyes that had seen too many repair jobs and not enough sunsets. Filter Unit 47B restored to operational parameters, he muttered into his comm unit. Moving on to Section 48. Acknowledged, Technician Thorne, replied the station's AI in its characteristically flat tone. Please note your efficiency rating has decreased by 2.7% this quarter. Management recommends optimization of work patterns. Alex rolled his eyes. Thanks for the update, Ida. Anything else you'd like to critique about my existence today? Your sarcasm subroutines remain fully functional, Technician Thorne. This has been noted in your personnel file. He sighed, gathering his tools. 4 years on this rock, and his only meaningful conversations were with an AI programmed to monitor his productivity. The station housed 37 other humans, but most were either short-term contractors or corporate climbers using Vesta 7 as a stepping stone to better assignments. Alex was neither, just a competent engineer who'd found his niche in the shadows of the station's maintenance shafts, fixing what others broke, keeping the ancient station functional despite corporate's minimal investment in upgrades. As he moved toward the next section, his mind drifted to the dream that had awakened him that morning, the same one that had been recurring with increasing frequency over the past few weeks. A strange sky with twin moons hanging impossibly large on the horizon. Music that seemed to bypass his ears and resonate directly in his bones. And always that feeling of profound loss, as if something essential had been torn from him, leaving a wound he couldn't identify or heal. The dreams left him disoriented, melancholic. They seemed more like memories than fantasies, yet they couldn't possibly be his. Alex had never left the inner solar system. He'd never seen alien skies or heard music that made reality shimmer like heat waves. Shaking off the lingering unease, he turned into Section 48, a rarely used corridor connecting the primary habitat ring to an older section of the station that predated the corporate takeover. The lights here flickered intermittently, casting moving shadows across walls patched with mismatched metal plates. Vesta 7 was a patchwork of technologies, the newest additions grafted awkwardly onto infrastructure from the early days of asteroid mining. The station creaked and groaned like a living thing, expanding and contracting with temperature fluctuations as it rotated to simulate gravity. Alex knelt beside the next air filter unit, prying open the access panel with practiced ease. As he inspected the corroded interior, a sound filtered through his consciousness, so faint at first that he thought he'd imagined it. A voice, soft, melodic, coming through the internal comm system that normally carried only the AI's monotone or the station director's clipped announcements. "I miss you so much, my husband." Alex froze, the wrench suspended in midair. The voice was female, tinged with an accent he couldn't place, something that made common words sound like poetry. "Ida, who's accessing the comm system in Section 48? He asked. Silence. "Ida." The AI remained uncharacteristically quiet. The voice came again, closer now, no longer through the comm system, but echoing down the corridor itself. "I miss you so much, my husband." Alex stood slowly, his hand instinctively reaching for the utility knife on his belt. "Hello. This is a restricted maintenance area. Identify yourself." He peered down the dimly lit corridor, squinting past the flickering lights. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman, moving with a fluid grace that seemed almost choreographed. As she stepped into a pool of light, Alex felt his breath catch. She was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her skin held a silvery sheen that captured and reflected the ambient light. Her eyes, large, expressive, with multiple pupils that contracted and expanded independently, fixed on him with an intensity that made him step back. Her ears tapered to subtle points adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as she moved. She wore a close-fitting garment of an iridescent material that resembled liquid metal more than fabric. But what struck Alex most was her expression, a complex mixture of joy, grief, longing, and something like relief. She looked at him as if she knew him intimately, as if seeing him was both miracle and torment. "I miss you so much, my husband," she said again directly. To him this time, her voice breaking slightly on the last word. Alex swallowed hard. "Lady, I think you've got the wrong guy. I'm not married." "Kalen," she whispered, extending a hand toward him. "No, I'm Alex. Alex Thorne. I don't know any Kalen." He backed away, raising his comm unit. "Security, I need assistance in Section 48. We have an unauthorized visitor." Static answered him. The woman, if that's what she was, took another step forward. "They cannot hear you. The transition creates a temporary field disruption." "Transition? What transition? How did you get on this station?" Alex demanded, fighting to keep his voice steady. "There hasn't been a transport dock in 3 weeks. I didn't arrive by your vessels." She studied his face with those disconcerting eyes. "You truly don't recognize me, do you?" The severance was more complete than he calculated. Alex's mind raced through possibilities, each less plausible than the last. A hallucination from fatigue or oxygen imbalance. Some elaborate prank by the engineering crew. A test from corporate security. "Look, I don't know what game you're playing, but I have work to finish. Either identify yourself properly, or I'll find a security officer physically and escort you to the station director." The woman's expression softened. "My name is Lyra. I've come from elsewhere to find you. In my reality, you, or rather, the man whose resonance signature matches yours, was my husband. His name was Kalen, and he was brilliant, brave, and sacrificed everything to save me. To save all of us." Alex laughed, the sound harsh in the narrow corridor. "Right, and I'm actually the king of Mars, just working undercover to understand the common folk." "Your skepticism is expected," Lyra replied calmly. "But within you lies the echo of Kalen. I sensed it across the barriers between our realities. The quantum entanglement of consciousness cannot be severed completely." "Quantum what?" Alex shook his head. "Lady, Lyra, whatever you're selling, I'm not buying. There's no such thing as other realities, and I'm definitely not your husband from one. I'm just a maintenance engineer with a repair quota to fill before the end of shift." He turned back to the air filter, determined to ignore her until security responded or she went away. When neither happened after several minutes of tense silence, he glanced over his shoulder. Lyra remained, watching him work with unsettling intensity. "You always did that," she said softly. "Did what?" "Retreat into mechanical tasks when emotionally overwhelmed. Kalen would disassemble and rebuild quantum engines when troubled." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. It was true. He'd spent his entire life diving into machinery when emotions became too complicated. It was why he was so good at his job and so bad at relationships. "Lucky guess," he muttered, turning back to his work. "You hum a specific sequence of notes when concentrating deeply," she continued. "A melody from childhood. Your mother used to sing it while gardening in the biodomes of Europa Colony." Alex's hands froze. He did hum while working, a habit he'd never really questioned. And his mother had indeed been a hydroponic specialist on Europa, though he rarely spoke of his childhood there. "You've researched me," he said, a note of uncertainty creeping into his voice. "That information is probably in my personnel file. Is it also in your file that you cannot abide in closed spaces with no visible exit? That you panic if doors close too quickly behind you? That when you sleep, you instinctively position yourself to protect something, someone, on your left side?" Each word landed like a physical blow. These weren't just facts about him. They were intimate details of his daily existence, quirks he himself had only partially acknowledged. "Who are you really?" he demanded, standing to face her. "Corporate security? Psychological evaluation team? Did Director Hammond finally decide I've been down in the maintenance tunnels too long?" Before she could answer, the lights in the corridor flashed red, and Ida's voice returned, sounding different, higher-pitched, almost anxious. Security alert. Unauthorized energy signature detected in Section 48. All personnel evacuate immediately. Security teams converge on location. Lyra's expression changed to one of alarm. They've located me sooner than anticipated. We must move. We aren't going anywhere, Alex said firmly. I'm staying right here until security arrives and sorts this out. The wall panel beside them suddenly flickered to life, displaying security camera feeds from around the station. Each feed showed armed personnel in unfamiliar black uniforms moving with military precision through Vesta 7's corridors. Those aren't station security, Alex said, his professional alarm overriding his personal confusion. Station security wore blue jumpsuits and carried standard-issue stunners. These figures wore tactical gear and carried weapons unlike any Alex had seen before, sleek, deadly-looking things that emitted a faint blue glow. They are Kronos Guard, Lyra said urgently. Temporal enforcement agents. They've come for me, and now for you as well. If they find us, they will either eliminate us or worse, separate us across different realities where we can never find each other again. This is insane, Alex muttered, but he was already backing away from the approaching figures on the screen. Something about their movements triggered a primal fear in him, a certainty that these weren't people he wanted to meet. A sudden explosion rocked the station, sending them both staggering. Emergency klaxons began to wail. "Ida, what's happening?" Alex shouted into his comm. Multiple breaches detected. The AI responded, its voice breaking up. Unknown entities have. The transmission cut off abruptly. "We need to go. Now." Lyra grabbed his arm, her touch sending an electric shock of familiarity through him. Against every rational instinct, Alex found himself nodding. "This way," he said, pointing toward a maintenance shaft hidden behind a removable wall panel. "We can use the service tunnels to reach the auxiliary docking bay." As he pulled the panel free, exposing the narrow shaft beyond, Alex paused, confusion washing over him. "How did I know to suggest the auxiliary bay? It's been decommissioned for years." Lyra's eyes softened. "Because Kalen used it to dock his research vessel when he wanted to avoid official scrutiny. That knowledge remains buried beneath the surface personality they constructed for you." Before Alex could process this, another explosion, closer this time, jolted them into action. They squeezed into the maintenance shaft, Alex leading the way through the labyrinthine network of tunnels that formed Vesta 7's circulatory system. As they crawled through the cramped passageways, Alex's mind raced. None of this made sense. Alternate realities? Temporal enforcement agents? A husband from another dimension? Yet Lyra's presence beside him felt oddly right, as if some part of him recognized her at a level beyond conscious thought. They emerged into a wider maintenance corridor, and Alex pressed his hand against the scanner to seal the bulkhead behind them. "That will slow them down, but not for long," he said, surprising himself with his certainty. "You know their capabilities," Lyra nodded. "That's good. More is returning than I hoped." "I don't know anything," Alex insisted, even as his hands moved with unexpected confidence over the station's security systems, bypassing protocols and rerouting surveillance feeds with expertise he shouldn't possess. They continued through the station's underbelly, avoiding the main corridors where the mysterious intruders searched. Twice they nearly ran into patrols, saved only by Alex's inexplicable foreknowledge of the station's rhythm and Lyra's preternatural ability to sense their pursuers' proximity. "We need to find Sal," Alex said suddenly as they paused at a junction. "Sal?" Lyra asked. "Salvatore Kimura, station's oldest technician. If anyone will believe this madness, it's him." Alex couldn't explain why he trusted the eccentric old engineer, but something told him Sal would be an ally. "He works in the auxiliary power control room this shift." They made their way through increasingly damaged sections of the station. Whatever the intruders were doing, it was causing systematic failures throughout Vesta 7. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow over everything, and the artificial gravity fluctuated unpredictably. The auxiliary power control room was mercifully empty of intruders when they arrived. Sal Kimura sat calmly at his station, adjusting controls with practiced efficiency despite the chaos unfolding around him. The old technician, Japanese-Italian heritage evident in his features, with a shock of white hair and hands gnarled from decades of engineering work, didn't seem surprised to see them. "Took you long enough," he said without looking up. "I've been keeping the auxiliary systems running since they breached the main power core. Figured you'd come here eventually." Alex stared. "You know what's happening?" Sal finally looked up, his dark eyes taking in Lyra with a thoughtful expression. "Not the details, but I've worked on stations like this for 50 years, boy. You think this is the first time I've seen something come through from the other side?" "The other side," Alex repeated numbly. "Different terms for it, depending who you ask. Parallel dimension. Alternate timeline. The road not taken." Sal shrugged. "Physics gets weird when you've been in space as long as I have." Lyra stepped forward. "You've witnessed transitions before?" "Witnessed? Girl, I helped build the first experimental dimensional resonance detector back in '87, before they shut the program down and scrubbed the records." Sal turned back to his controls. "But that's ancient history. Right now, we need to get you two off the station before those Kronos boys find you." "You know about the Kronos Guard?" Alex asked, incredulous. "Know about them? I've been monitoring their communications since they breached." Sal flipped a switch, and a scratchy audio feed filled the room. Voices speaking in a language Alex didn't recognize but somehow understood. "Find the divergent and the catalyst. Full sanction authorized. Time integrity must be preserved." Alex felt dizzy. The words were foreign yet comprehensible, as if a part of his brain was translating automatically. "They're talking about us," he said. "I'm the divergent. You're the catalyst." He looked at Lyra in shock. "How do I know that?" "Because you're remembering," she said gently. "Kalen theorized that consciousness has quantum properties that extend across realities. When he hid you here, he couldn't erase everything." "Hid me?" "I was born on Europa Station. I grew up there. I have memories." "Constructed memories," Sal interrupted. "Good ones, too. Whoever did the work was an artist. But there are tells if you know what to look for." He pulled up Alex's personnel file on a screen. "No biometric matches in any database before 12 years ago. Perfect record of academic performance, but no classmates who remember you. Job references who, when contacted directly, have slight variations in their recollections." Alex felt the floor shift beneath him, and not from the station's damaged gravity generators. "Why would he do this? Hide himself as me?" Lyra's expression turned grim. "Because Kalen discovered something. Something the Kronos Guard and their masters don't want known. A fundamental flaw in the multiverse structure. A flaw they exploit to maintain their power. And he hid it somewhere on this station," Sal added, pulling up a schematic. "Something valuable enough that they're willing to breach dimensional barriers to retrieve it." "The axiom key," Alex whispered, the term surfacing from nowhere. Lyra's eyes widened. "Yes, you remember." As if her words had unlocked a door, images flooded Alex's mind. Laboratories filled with impossible technology, equations that revealed the universe's hidden architecture. Lyra, in a different setting, laughing as they worked side by side. A desperate flight from pursuers. A device activated in the last moment as everything collapsed around them. "I hid it," he said, his voice distant even to his own ears. "I hid it, and then I hid myself." "But where?" Sal tapped the schematic. "The auxiliary docking bay you mentioned. There's a ship there, an old supply shuttle officially decommissioned years ago, but still draws minimal power. I always wondered why station management never fully disconnected it." Alex nodded slowly. "Because I needed it to remain viable. An escape route." He turned to Lyra. "We need to get to that ship. Those Kronos boys are sweeping the station systematically," Sal warned. "They'll reach the auxiliary base soon." "Then we need a distraction," Alex said, looking at the power controls with new understanding. His hands moved across the panel with practiced ease, initiating sequences that seemed both familiar and foreign. "Station's power grid is already compromised," Sal observed. "What are you doing?" creating a resonance cascade in the tertiary systems, Alex replied, his voice taking on a different cadence. More precise, more confident. It will trigger emergency protocols and redirect their attention to the main docking bay. That's brilliant, Sal admitted, watching the sequences unfold. And definitely not something a maintenance engineer should know how to do. Alex completed the sequence and turned to the old technician. Come with us, Sal. The old man smiled sadly. Can't, boy. Someone's got to stay behind and make sure this works. Besides, he tapped his chest. Old Hart wouldn't survive a dimensional jump. Already had 2 replacements. How can you be sure, Alex began, that you're telling the truth? That you're really some genius scientist from another reality? Sal shrugged. I can't. But in 50 years of deep space work, I've seen enough to know our understanding of reality is like a child's drawing compared to the actual picture. And I've always trusted my gut. He pointed to a small storage locker. Take my personal toolkit. Might come in handy. Alex embraced the old engineer, surprised by the surge of emotion he felt. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You've still got to reach that ship and figure out what the hell you hit on it. Sal turned back to his controls. Now go. Distraction starts in 3 minutes. Alex grabbed the toolkit, and he and Lyra slipped out of the control room, navigating through increasingly damaged sections of the station. True to Sal's word, 3 minutes later alarms blared throughout Vesta 7, and emergency bulkheads began closing in a predetermined sequence. The Kronos teams will be redirected to contain what they'll perceive as a catastrophic system failure, Alex explained as they ducked through a maintenance hatch moments before it sealed. Standard temporal incursion protocols dictate preserving the primary timeline infrastructure where possible. He paused, startled by his own words. How do I know their protocols? Because you helped write them, Lyra said, before you discovered the truth and defected. They reached the access corridor to the auxiliary docking bay just as a violent shudder ran through the station. Through a viewport, Alex saw escape pods launching from the residential sections. Sal's evacuating the civilian personnel, he noted. Good man. The auxiliary docking bay doors were sealed with security measures far beyond standard station protocols. Alex found himself disabling them with practiced ease, his fingers moving as if guided by muscle memory he hadn't known he possessed. The doors slid open to reveal a cavernous space, dark except for minimal emergency lighting. Dominating the center of the bay was a shuttle, an older model supply vessel, ostensibly stripped for parts, but in truth meticulously maintained beneath its neglected exterior. There she is, Alex murmured. The Persistence. You named her well, Lyra said softly. As they approached the vessel, the bay's secondary doors exploded inward. 3 figures in the now familiar black tactical gear of the Kronos Guard stormed through the breach, weapons raised. Stop right there, Divergent, called the lead figure, a tall, lean individual whose helmet retracted to reveal a severe face with unnaturally perfect features. By authority of the Temporal Concord, you are ordered to surrender the catalyst and submit to reality realignment. Alex stepped protectively in front of Lyra. I don't recognize your authority, Agent Mercer. The name had emerged unbidden, but the agent's slight flinch confirmed its accuracy. So, the memory suppression is failing, Mercer said coolly. All the more reason to terminate rather than capture. The director was too sentimental in ordering your retrieval, Kalen. Your brilliance doesn't excuse your treason. It's not treason to expose a lie, Alex replied, pieces of Kalen's memories continuing to surface. The Concord doesn't preserve timeline integrity. It manipulates realities to maintain power. You're not protectors, you're parasites. Mercer's expression hardened. Philosophy is a luxury for those who don't understand the practical necessities of multiverse governance. The axiom key, Kalen. Where is it? Safe from you, Alex said, becoming aware of Lyra's subtle movements beside him. She was shifting into a fighting stance he somehow recognized, the defensive forms of the Callistan martial discipline she had mastered. Then we take the catalyst. Mercer gestured, and his 2 subordinates advanced. Her quantum signature will lead us to it eventually. What happened next occurred with such speed that Alex's conscious mind struggled to process it. Lyra moved with liquid grace, her body flowing around the guard's attacks like water around stone. One moment the agents were advancing confidently. The next, two lay unconscious, while the third, Mercer, was locked in combat with Lyra, their movements a blur of impossible speed. "The ship," Lyra called out, her voice strained as she blocked a strike that would have shattered ordinary bones. "Get to the ship." Alex hesitated, reluctant to leave her. "Go," she insisted. "I'll follow." Something within him, Kalen's tactical assessment, perhaps, recognized the logic. He sprinted toward the shuttle, pressing his palm against the entry scanner. The door hissed open, recognizing biometric patterns deeper than skin level. Inside, the shuttle was far more advanced than its exterior suggested. Controls lit up as he approached, systems awakening from dormancy. Alex slid into the pilot's seat with unnerving familiarity, his hands dancing across interfaces only he could see. Through the viewport, he watched Lyra finally gain the upper hand against Mercer, landing a precision strike to a neural cluster at the base of his skull. The agent collapsed, and Lyra raced toward the shuttle. But even as she reached the entrance, a new threat materialized. A shimmering distortion in the air coalesced into a figure Alex recognized with bone-deep dread. Director Naveen, head of the Kronos Guard, a being whose true nature transcended simple humanity. "Kalen, my brilliant protege," the director said, his voice resonating on multiple frequencies simultaneously. "Did you really believe you could hide from me? I've allowed this game to continue only out of respect for what we once accomplished together." Lyra froze at the threshold of the shuttle, trapped between escape and the director's imposing presence. "Let her go," Alex called out, rising from the pilot's seat. "Your quarrel is with me, not her." "On the contrary," the director replied, smoothly, "she is the catalyst, the emotional weakness that led to your betrayal. I should have eliminated her when I first observed your attachment growing beyond professional boundaries." As the director spoke, Alex noticed something, a subtle vibration running through the shuttle's deck plates, a resonance pattern that made his teeth ache. Recognition dawned. The Axiom key was reacting to the proximity of both Lyra and himself, activating after years of dormancy. It was here, inside the shuttle, hidden in plain sight, integrated into the vessel's systems. Understanding bloomed fully in that moment. Not just fragments of Kalen's memories, but the complete picture. The key wasn't merely a device. It was an algorithm, a mathematical proof embedded in the shuttle's operational matrix. Kalen hadn't hidden a physical object. He'd hidden knowledge that could unravel the Kronos Guard's control over reality itself. With this realization came another, the final piece of the puzzle that had eluded even Kalen's brilliant mind. The key required both him and Lyra to activate. Their unique quantum signatures, entangled across realities, forming the necessary decoherence pattern. "Lyra," he shouted, "jump, now!" Understanding instantly, Lyra launched herself toward the shuttle entrance, just as the director moved to intercept her. Alex slammed his palm onto a hidden panel, and the shuttle's systems surged with energy. A field of iridescent light enveloped Lyra in mid-leap, accelerating her movement beyond natural physics. She shot through the entrance as the director's grasp closed on empty air. The shuttle door sealed instantly. The director's face contorted with rage as he prepared to phase through the hull, a capability Alex now remembered with perfect clarity. "System Prime," Alex commanded, his voice overlapping with Kalen's refined tones. "Execute Janus Protocol." The shuttle's hidden systems responded immediately. Layers of energy fields manifested around the vessel, each operating on different quantum frequencies, creating a dimensional barrier even the director couldn't easily penetrate. Through the viewport, Alex watched the director's expression shift from rage to calculating assessment. The being raised a hand, and throughout the docking bay, reality itself began to warp and distort. "He's initiating a localized reality collapse," Alex explained to Lyra, who had recovered and now stood beside him, trying to fold space around us to prevent escape. "Can we break free?" she asked, her hand finding his with natural familiarity. The touch completed a circuit, not metaphorically, but literally. Energy surged between them, channeling through the shuttle systems. Displays flared with equations that rewrote themselves continuously, adjusting to the director's attacks and calculating countermeasures. "Together, we can," Alex replied, understanding with perfect clarity now. The key isn't just a proof, it's a tool. It doesn't just expose the lie, it creates an alternative. He guided Lyra's hand to join his on the main control interface. As their palms pressed against the surface, the shuttle's engines ignited with impossible power. Not conventional thrusters, but something deeper. Drives that pushed not against physical space, but against reality's fabric itself. The director's distortion field closed around them like a fist, but the shuttle pushed back, carving its own pathway through the collapsing pocket of space-time. The docking bay, Vesta 7, the asteroid belt itself, all began to fade from view, replaced by a swirling maelstrom of quantum possibilities. Through the chaos, Alex glimpsed the director's face one last time. No longer human-seeming, but revealing its true nature. A being of pure pattern, ancient and terrible in its complexity. The expression at war was one Alex recognized from Kalen's memories. Fear. Then they were through, the shuttle punching through dimensional barriers like tissue paper, riding the energy generated by the fully awakened Axiom Key. The vessel shuddered, system straining to contain forces never meant to be harnessed by technology of its size. Warning indicators flashed across every display. The shuttle would hold together for their escape, but the strain would ultimately prove too much for its structure. As the dimensional turbulence began to stabilize, Alex turned to Lyra. His mind now held two complete sets of memories. Alex Thorne's simple life as a maintenance engineer and Kalen's brilliant, complex existence as a scientist who had discovered the multiverse's greatest secret. They weren't fighting for dominance as he might have expected, but rather integrating, forming something new and unique. "You found me," he said softly, "against impossible odds." "Our quantum signatures remained entangled," she replied, her eyes reflecting the swirling energies outside the viewport. "No power in any reality could truly separate us. I would have searched forever. I remember. Everything now," he said. "Both lives. Both sets of choices. I remember why I became Alex. To hide? Yes, but also to understand. To experience a simpler existence while the key remained dormant, growing more complex with each passing day as it gathered data on reality fluctuations." Lyra's expression grew concerned as she studied the shuttle's failing systems. "But now what? The shuttle won't survive much longer." Alex, or perhaps Kalen, or more accurately the man who is now both, smiled with newfound confidence. "It doesn't need to. Its purpose is fulfilled. The key has awakened and recorded the director's attempts to manipulate fundamental reality. That evidence, broadcast across the quantum foam, will reach every corner of every timeline." "You weaponized information," Lyra realized. "Truth is the ultimate weapon against systems built on deception," he agreed. "The Chronos Guard's ability to manipulate realities depends on secrecy, on most beings never realizing reality itself is mutable. That secret is now exposed." Warning klaxons blared as the shuttle's structural integrity continued to degrade. Through the viewport, they could see space resolving itself around them. Not the familiar solar system they had left, but somewhere else entirely. A system with twin suns orbiting each other in an elegant dance, with planets arrayed around them like jewelry. "Where are we?" Alex asked, the engineer in him momentarily overriding the scientist. "Home," Lyra said simply. "My home, where we first met before the Chronos Guard found us." The shuttle gave a particularly violent shudder, and several systems failed simultaneously. They had minutes at most. "We need to evacuate," Alex said, accessing the emergency protocols. The shuttle contained a single escape pod, sufficient for 2 passengers but little else. As they prepared the pod, Alex felt a strange peace settling over him. Neither fully Kalen nor fully Alex anymore. He had become something new, someone who carried the best aspects of both existences. The brilliant scientist's knowledge and vision. The humble engineer's practicality and compassion. The escape pod detached smoothly, propelling them away from the disintegrating shuttle. Through the small viewport, they watched as the vessel that had harbored the Axiom key for so long finally surrendered to the forces tearing it apart. It didn't explode so much as dissolve, coming undone at the quantum level, each particle returning to the universal substrate from which all matter emerges. What will happen now? Lyra asked as their pod drifted toward the inner planets of this unfamiliar system. The director, the Kronos Guard, they won't simply surrender their power. No, he agreed, but they've lost their monopoly on understanding. Other beings throughout the multiverse will now recognize reality's malleability. Some will use that knowledge wisely, others destructively, but the days of centralized control are ending. And us? Her question was soft, hesitant in a way he hadn't heard before. You're neither fully Kalen nor fully Alex now. I fell in love with Kalen, but I came to respect Alex during our escape. Who are you now? He considered this as their pod sensors detected an approaching vessel, likely a patrol from Lyra's homeworld, responding to their unexpected arrival. I'm both and neither, he said finally. Kalen was brilliant but arrogant, too focused on abstract truths to see the human cost. Alex was kind but limiting himself, hiding from his potential. I need to find a middle path. Lyra's hand found his again, the touch now comfortable, familiar. Then we'll find it together. The patrol vessel locked a tractor beam onto their pod, beginning the retrieval process. Soon they would face questions, explanations, the complex process of reintegration into a society that had thought Kalen lost forever. There would be dangers too. The director and the Kronos Guard wouldn't abandon their pursuit entirely. But they would be weaker now, their power diminished by exposure, forced to operate openly rather than from the shadows. As the pod was drawn into the larger vessel's docking bay, he turned to Lyra, seeing her with new clarity, both through Kalen's memories of their shared past and Alex's fresh appreciation of her strength and determination. I miss you so much, my husband, she had said when they first met in that dimly lit corridor on Vesta 7. Words that had confused and frightened Alex Thorne, the simple maintenance engineer. Now, as the pod settled onto the deck of the retrieval vessel and the airlock began to cycle, he took her face gently between his hands and replied with words that encompassed both his past selves and his emerging new identity. I miss you too, but I'm here now, and this time, I'm not going anywhere.